All right. Well, welcome to Sleep in Cinema's video interviews. We are a weekly radio show here on Substrate Radio in Birmingham, Alabama. We interview filmmakers and local folks in the film community here, but we're very fortunate to team up with the Sidewalk Film Festival and have a series with directors and filmmakers who are having films there. So today we are joined by Tom Stern. And I got to say, this is a real honor for me. I'm a huge fan of Freaked. And I'm so glad that it's finally getting a release. Oh my goodness. I'm going to order my copy. It's absolutely amazing. That amazing team that you had with Alex Winter. I know you guys go way back, but I know you're probably very excited about that. But we're here to talk primarily about this amazing new documentary that you made about the Butthole Surfers, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And it is astonishing. As someone who I think we're a similar age and growing up with the Butthole Surfers in the 80s and the 90s. Oh my goodness. It was revelatory to me, as it is, I'm sure, to many people, even if they know a lot about the Butthole Surfers. This is an extraordinary film that you've made. So I just want to thank you for that first. And I can
Thank
only
you.
imagine that this is. Yeah, absolutely. I can only imagine this has been something you've been working on a long time. I mean, the series of interviews that you have, I mean, the recordings, I mean, just the research, I mean, the archiving. How long have you been working on this? Tell us a little bit about that process.
Well, I've been working on the documentary five years, 5.5 now. We started right when COVID started in 2020.
Wow.
But in a sense, I've been working on it for 40 years because when I was an NYU film student, I became a giant fan. I saw the Butthole Surfers at CBGB's and other clubs in New York, and they blew me away. And I was just talk about revelatory experiences. That was a revelation that you could do that you could make a show that amazing and dangerous and compelling. You know, Gibby and the band, they're just like, Gibby's a fantastic showman as well as like a conceptual artist. So he just and Paul and the rest of the band, you know, they're all, Paul and Gibby are just brilliant artists, and they brought something to the stage that was more than just a rock show, but the music was amazing. So they blew me away. It opened my eyes. It was such a direct sort of bullseye for what my, you know, artistic and aesthetic sense was. It was in your face, but it was weird and powerful, and it disoriented you in the most kind of delightful way, you know. And it had an edge of danger and scariness, but it was funny as well. So it sort of hit all these buttons, you know, emotional buttons. And I was like, God damn, I gotta just document these guys. So I rented, you know, I mean, I checked out a video camera. I was taking a video class at NYU. I checked out the gear and shot them at CBGB's. And some of that footage is in the movie I just made. So, you know, it's been a long journey.
Oh my goodness. I think the next question I just have to ask, I mean, you have all these different things from archive and interviews, but you also structurally incorporate, I think, in the aesthetic and the humor of the Butthole Surfers, you know, puppetry and animation and all these other things. And, you know, as I said, I knew you from Freaked, and you've worked with Crank Acres and all these things. Could you tell me, I mean, how, I mean, was that something from the very start you thought, okay, to tell this story, I need to collaborate with these other artists to tell this story? What was that process like for you?
Well, you know, the Butthole Surfers concerts, as you know, you saw them back in the day, I'm assuming. You did. So, you know what a sensory overload it was. You know, there were projections, there was fire coming out of cymbals, there was disorienting, you know, digital delay, spoken word. It was a phantasmagoric experience. And I was like, how the hell am I going to give the audience a sense of that? Because it doesn't, like watching a crappy VHS, you know, video of one of those shows does not do it justice. It's like looking through a pinhole at a spectacle, you know? So I was like, how can I do it? And that was my big challenge. So I just thought we need to hit it on a lot of different levels visually. The last thing I wanted to do was make a boring standard music doc with a bunch of talking heads, you know. And so I wanted to be as visually adventurous and as the band was. And I thought that I had a good idea of, you know, like the spirit of the band. So I I just said, I got to throw everything. I got to, you know, bring every weapon I have. And I've worked with puppets a lot. I know puppetry is magical. It can really, and you know, the fact is, I wanted to recreate moments from their lives. And you know, how do you do that? You do it with actors. Well, you know, that's tough to find actors that are going to portray them, and you do it with animation, and then puppetry is a fantastic art form that I've had the honor and pleasure of doing a lot of on TV and otherwise. I like to make puppets, you know. um, I think it's a great art form. It's so yeah. I mean, I've worked for Henson and I've did crank anchors and other puppet stuff. So it's an art form that I know, and it's an art form I thought would not only be an entertaining way to recreate moments from their lives, but it sort of iconifies them when you make a cartoon or puppet representation, a kind of caricature of these guys. You know, suddenly they're icon. You know, it's like that's a way to just, and it iconifies them, and it was apt for this band because they were kind of cartoon characters on stage. You know, they were that Gibby. You know, they fashioned themselves into these outrageous, over the top cartoons of rock and roll excess and all that stuff. So I thought it was appropriate, and yeah, that and to my delight, I think it works, and you know, we're able to bring the audience on a journey through their lives in a fun, entertaining way, because that's the one thing I didn't want to do is bore people, you know. And I know that Gibby and the band, they're the same way. Like Gibby threw everything at the wall when they did those shows. It was like he's a brilliant guy. He's a great idea guy, but it was like, you know, impossible to be bored at a Butthole Surfers show. And that's kind of, you know, and I'll say this, Paul Leary sent me a text recently, and he said, you know, 5 years ago when you were starting this thing, you said you wanted it to be like going to a Butthole Surfers show. And he said that, you know, at the time he was like, yeah, good luck with that. But now he says you did it. You pulled it off. This is, you know,
whoa, that's amazing.
And that
what
meant
a compliment.
A lot to me.
Yeah,
you know,
I'm
he
sure.
said, and I was like, oh, come on, man, that's not true. And he was like, it is true, and you're hearing it from the horse's mouth. So I was like, wow, I can die happy now.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, that's probably the ultimate compliment. I'm very curious. I mean, what was
the fact that the band really loves it is,
yeah,
I can die happy. You know, I wanted to honor this band, and I knew that I didn't want to do a hagiography because that's boring. You know, I wanted it to be warts and all, and they're smart enough to understand that like you have to do that. Like, I'll say this, man, I just saw the Devo doc, which I've been dying to see, and it's okay, but it's not great, you know, and it's like it's an advertisement. It's you know, it's a little boring, which is weird because I love Devo. And so did the Butthole Surfers. They were like a giant, you know. I'm actually, these are kind of Mark Mothersbaugh glasses.
Very much so. I was thinking
those are awesome.
You know, you can take a music doc two ways. You can do like the standard, then this happened, then this happened, talking heads, like you said, or you can take this path that you've done. And I watched the Pavements documentary. You've seen it, but it's a little more unconventional.
Meta.
There's some narrative things that they're doing with it. Yeah, very meta. And also the Flaming Lips documentary from a few years ago, which I thought was really interesting too. So I really did appreciate that Wayne Cohen contributed to the interviews as well. I like that you were able to get a lot of folks to bring context into the Butthole Surfers. So I'm assuming that that took a lot of. Did you know these folks before? Were you able, or was it just like, hey, I'm doing a Butthole Surfer documentary. I'm on board. Let's go. How did that work? How did you get those relationships in those interviews?
You mean with the band?
With like Flaming Lips, with any of the bands that were contemporary.
It's all I knew a lot of them, but I didn't know Wayne Coyne until Gibby connected us, and that actually happened after the first cut at South by Southwest. So that's new.
Oh wow, okay.
And
yeah,
I always wanted to interview him, but I couldn't get through it. You know, a lot of these people are very hard to get in touch with.
Oh, of course.
So
yeah,
that was Gibby who hooked us up, and we've since become like pen pals. I'm going to see the Flaming Lips at the Greek Theater here in LA in September. I can't wait. But
that's amazing. I've actually seen them there. That's a great venue for them.
It
saw
is
them a couple of years ago there. Yeah.
And we had a weird connection because I did when COVID hit, I'm kind of a amateur inventor. And so I invented a wacky thing called the hover bubble, which was like a plastic inflatable chamber on top of a hoverboard. And so I could like go around my living room in a germ-free environment, you know. And
I love
it was kind of just a wacky, fun invention, but I posted on Instagram. And then I saw the Flaming Lips do the same thing with their bubbles. They were like going out over the audience in these bubbles for COVID. And I was like, oh man, we had the same idea. So I sent him that video and he's like, oh, cool.
Yeah, that sounds that sounds like down their alley for sure.
It is. I mean, they were, you know, inspired by the Buttholes.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, is that it seems, I don't mean this in a negative way, but it seems like Wayne is really, really taking a lot from Gibby's stage persona with the megaphone, with the whole thing. Yeah, the blood.
He freely admits it.
Yeah, and I appreciated that he did do that in the interviews.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I was gonna say I really loved how you showed in this film the influence that they've had. You know, for a while they were your favorite band's favorite band, right? That whole thing, but and not just in music, but you look at film with the Richard Linklater stuff that you put in there. I mean, and performance art in general. I think their influence is quite extraordinary. And I really enjoyed how you pointed that out. I mean, was that intentional, I would imagine, to show that the scope of their influence?
Absolutely. And that's why I put Eric Andre in there, because I wanted to show that their influence has continued into younger generations. And you know, we're just going to start doing a TikTok promotion. We're gearing up for that. And one of the first clip we're doing is an Eric Andre outtake that's not in the movie, where he says, you know, basically he's like, I was completely like, I took everything from them and I was so inspired by them. I basically am a plagiarist, a Butthole Surfers plagiarist. And he says he'd do these Eric Andre live shows around the country where he'd get naked and it would be over, you know, insane. And then afterwards he'd be like, God, I still didn't do I wasn't as crazy as the Butthole Surfers. I didn't have sex on stage. I'm a fraud, you know. So that was like great. Eric is great, and I'm glad that he was so honest about that.
Yeah,
you know, we're all inspired by artists we love. You know, as they say, great artists, you know, mediocre artists borrow, meaning you can see there's nothing else there. They just borrowed it. They didn't make it their own. But great artists steal, meaning they take this thing, but they make it their own, you know, and that's what the Flaming Lips and Eric Andre have been able to do.
I'm a similar age, I'm sure, and I like to think that I've seen a lot of great bands.
29.
And I realize what's that?
29.
Yeah, 29. I'm 29. And I realized I've only seen Butthole Surfers once, and it was at Lollapalooza, which is not the same experience.
Not the same.
And I really appreciated that. Yeah. So you really did bring me a Butthole Surfer show.
Yeah. I mean,
and I saw them. Oh, go ahead.
Well, you know, we say that in the film, and it's true. It's like when I saw them at Lollapalooza, I was like, okay. They're just not an opening act. You know, you can't follow their act, and you can't do it in the daytime outside. You know, you needed the darkness, and it really helped to be in a smaller enclosed theater where it's like it enhances the kind of danger and like, we can't get out of here. We're trapped with maniacs that are putting on the show, the most extreme show you've ever seen. And but still, I don't begrudge people who enjoy Lollapalooza, and of course Gibby made it.
No.
He came up with some stagecraft to make it compelling, namely firing a shotgun over the crowd.
God.
But it was like the magical period for me was when they had two drummers, Teresa and King. I really respond to that rhythm section. That was a big part of what drew me in, that kind of tribal thunder, and
and speaking of those the two drummers, the sweetness of that story that I was not expecting, because again, I don't think I followed the lore of that band as closely as I will now dig back into them. But that story, and even Gibby's story at the end, not to give it away, but again, I'm assuming you were not expecting to take that turn, just because life happens as you're making this film. Is that something that you had to make a conscious decision to go, I want to take it there? Like, you could have definitely left that out, but I'm assuming there were conversations. Talk about how that process worked.
Well, without spoiling it, there's a revelation about Gibby's past, and that I think actually does explain a lot about his art,
Agreed.
where it comes from. Like, I always resist the kind of pat Hollywood explanations, psychological explanations and backstories that seem trite, but in this case, it's true, and it explains so much. And it was actually like the first question I asked him was, what's your earliest memory? And that's the answer I got. And I was like, holy shit. And then the rest of the time I was trying to figure out how to work it into the story. And, we figured it out, but I didn't know where in the film to reveal that. And, I think we found the right way to do it. But of course, with documentaries, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, right? It's like you don't know what the story is until you shoot a ton of interviews, and then you realize what you have, and you have to structure it. It's not like writing a screenplay. So, and in fact, Gibby was like, what's the story? What are you going to do? And, he kept saying that at the beginning. I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know.
We'll see.
It's like, I really don't know. And I learned as I went. And my philosophy was, I'm going to, if you're doing a documentary, like a Netflix documentary where, you have to churn them out in a timely fashion and do it efficiently because you're spending other people's money, that's one thing. But I wanted to go the other way because I didn't have any money. I just started shooting interviews, right? And we got some money later. But at the beginning, I was like, I'm just going to interview everybody as much as I can because, I don't know if it'll end up in the movie, but I want to have the option. I want to throw a broad net. And so I would talk to anybody who had a legitimate connection. And I interviewed Gibby like 20 times over, 5 years, because Gibby's a tough interview and he doesn't really open up like you want him to. He kind of wants to be in control of the conversation and he doesn't give straight answers. But I was like, I tried everything I could think of to get him to be more emotionally vulnerable, because he goes into kind of a performative, like trying to be funny all the time, which
and
he is funny, but I wanted more than that. I don't want just I don't want that the talk show version of an interview. I want to go deeper, and he's not comfortable doing that. So it took a long, long time to get him there.
Sure. And not just with him, with the entire band. Like,
King,
you really,
on the other hand,
really kind
King
of got the
sweetness
for all of them.
King is the sweetener, because King is open. Like King just from the first interview is when he broke down crying, had this emotional outburst. He's just a lot more connected to his feelings and like willing to express them than Gibby and Paul, who are more reticent and guarded. Although Paul's pretty open too. Gibby's the least open because it's like he's got multiple layers of performance happening over his core emotional state. You know, he's a very complicated guy. He's a brilliant guy, and I love Gibby. But you know, it was, and I'm old friends with the dude. You know, we've hung out a lot, but that was an advantage and a disadvantage because you know, it's hard to be ask the tough Mike Wallace questions to a guy you really love, you know? It's like, I don't want to be an asshole. I don't want to like press him really hard to put him out of his comfort zone, but I had to. So it's like, you know, as a filmmaker, I'm like, I got to do my job, man. I got to ask you these really unpleasant things.
But it seems like your familiarity really kind of softened that blow a little bit and really kind of got him to let his guard down. Yeah.
Because he trusts me, and he doesn't trust people in general. You know?
Yeah.
So it's like, I've known him for 40 years, and that was definitely an advantage because he knew at the end of the day, I wasn't there to fucking do a hit piece on him, you know?
Of course.
I just wanted to do a great film. And he got that. He was like, I understand, you know, the best film you could make is not necessarily the film that I'm going to like, or that I'm going to want, you know, that I want. But he's an artist, like, and he respects art, and he respected me to, you know, just make a great film. And he knew that was the most important thing. Not that we do what the Devo doc was, which is basically, and many like the Led Zeppelin doc, they're just advertisements. They're funded by the record companies, you know, and that's a huge thing. When you see the record company's logo is like, you know, that's who produced the film, you know, you're not getting the whole truth and nothing but, you know.
Yeah, that's a great, I love that. Well, it's congratulations. I mean, again, it did what it was supposed to do. It was really emotional connection to the band. And now I just like, well, let me go back and listen to this again, because I think that,
you know, that's the thing about the band is they had such a power and a mystique because you didn't know much, right? Back in the day, it was these weird, enigmatic record covers and this crazy show. And you're like, are these people insane? Or, you know, what's the deal? And that enhanced the power. But I knew that when you make a good documentary, that's all out the window. You have to just concentrate on the truth because, you know, that's what a documentary is. So we had to make our peace with that in the first place of like, okay, we're not creating more mystique here. We're demystifying them, and we just have to be okay with that. Like, you know, that it's a different art form, you know, like doing a show, mystique is great. For rock bands, mystique is great. And it's kind of like a lost thing because of the internet and, you know, Led Zeppelin had mystique, like their record covers were full of mystique. And you're like, what the fuck? You know, it's not like these days where everybody's doing an Instagram and telling you, you know, promoting themselves and here's my face and I'm dropping my new record and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, there's no mystique anymore. It kind of hurts the art form.
Agreed.
I was going to say one thing that you do a great job with balance. It's humorous, but it's also real, or revealing who they really are and how difficult they were challenging to work with. But the bass players, how many bass players? I mean, it's like Spinal Tap and all that in some ways, but at the other, you know, they found with King and with Teresa, I mean, this incredible combination. But you did show, warts and all, you know, their relationships with bass players, very difficult.
Yeah, with the Canadian bass player, I think you're referring to, he's the sand in the Vaseline. Like he doesn't think of his time positively, and calls them the Manson family of punk rock. And you know, that's what, you know, that's part of it. So we got to show that. And frankly, as a storyteller, if you don't have antagonists, it's boring, right? You have to. It's annoying. It's human nature. When you hear, like, a lot of music docs are just like everybody's telling you how great they are, and there's no negativity, and you're like, okay, all right, you get bored. So it's like, I want to hear
you did. I didn't. Steak. Yeah, like that was interesting to me.
Yeah.
Hey, that you had that him in there.
Horrible human beings, and I don't agree with him. Yeah, but it was good. I was like, when he said that, I'm like, okay, we got our antagonists, you know.
I had no idea about all that touch and go stuff either. So that was really interesting.
It was, and that's entirely why he hated them, because he's best friends with Corey Rusk. And it was just like, come on, dude, you know,
Yeah.
don't leave us.
Right.
But what are you going to do? It's show business.
Yeah.
Well,
not
I mean,
show friends.
you know, yeah. It's good. But yeah, it's just, I don't want to keep, but just go, oh, there's Ian McKay. Okay, let's see what Ian McKay has to say about. I mean,
Yeah.
it's some heavyweights in
Yeah.
that particular. Yeah. So great job. Fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the Ian McKay thing was, it was also like we found as we went that, you know, music obviously is at the heart of the story, and using other people's songs can help tell the story. Like we used, you know, Look Back and Laugh, the Minor Threat song
Yeah.
about, you know, the friendship ceased to be. That was our little soundtrack for the Touch and Go kerfuffle, because you know, that friendship ceased to be. But because
Sure
of it just, and the Neil Young song that is Gibby's favorite
that was
song.
really interesting. Yeah.
Obviously, it gave emotional power to that part of the story.
I could talk to you about this all day.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate you talking to us about it. Are you coming? I can't remember if you're coming to the festival.
I'm coming.
Yeah. All right, we'll see you.
All right.
All right, we'll see you in person.
The film festival generously is flying me down, so I'm happy to jump on a plane, and I'll meet you down there. You guys will be there.
All right, we'll see you next weekend.
Awesome.
Fantastic. I look forward to it.
Yeah. So
yeah, definitely. I was gonna say we do our studios in Saturn, which is one of the cooler music venues here in Birmingham. Really, really great venues. So we're close to each issue with them. So, but yeah, hope to see you. But thank you again for your time. We know you're super busy. This is an amazing documentary you've made. We're so grateful that you made it, that you've shared it with the world now. And we really hope we know the people here in Birmingham will greatly appreciate it and love it. They're a great audience, and I think you'll really connect with them when you're here. So we're excited for that to happen.
Awesome. I can't wait to come down,
right.
guys.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.